Arts tenho proposto.
Mas é uma coisa de música.
My name is Turo. I'm from Finland. I work for Teosto Future Labs, which is the innovation platform of Teosto, the collection society of musical authors and publishers in Finland. Since we're from Finland, we are actually pretty cool, even though collective management is probably not always seen that way. I should probably always remind you when I start discussing about collective management that we are not only robbers that take money into our own pockets. We are owned by the Finnish music creators. We work for them. We are non-profit. In many ways, we are living the golden times of collective management at the moment. I think for the last 10 years, our revenues have been just growing all the time. But it's very likely that this is not going to happen anymore. There are several challenges and reasons why things might change. The future of the whole blanket license system, which is basically how we license music for TV and radio and live music, is unsecure. We are more and more trying to secure our existing revenues from broadcast and radio, which is still the biggest source of revenues that collection societies have. At the same time, in the future, we are more and more dependent on the domestic repertoire. It's because of the growing importance of direct licensing. More and more publishers and companies are licensing music directly, so in the end, the most important thing we got is the Finnish music that we represent. There are many things happening, regulatory issues, in the European Commission, of course, the whole digital single market development, questions about the value gap. With value gap, we mean the discussions with the big platform service providers like YouTube and Facebook, and the question why we don't get any money from there compared, for example, to streaming services like Spotify or Deezer. Also, the directive on collective rights management offers new possibilities for music creators to license music themselves. We call it do-it-yourself licensing. In the future, we have to offer them more choices of handling their rights by themselves. We're not monopolies anymore. Basically, we are already competing with other societies in different countries, and there are also new commercial players, and I'm pretty sure that in a couple of years there will be even more of them. Of course, royalty-free music services are also growing. Companies like Epidemic Sound, for example, who license music for TV, are taking a cut from our revenues. And of course, the whole discussion about artificial intelligence and music AI. At the moment, I think the music that AI produces is not anything that anybody wants to listen, but that will for sure change. And already some areas like background music, for example, is something that maybe in 5 years' time humans are not anymore producing. So basically, these are a couple of reasons why we established Teosto Future Labs in the end of 2016. Teosto Future Labs is our approach to R&D, our way to search new business possibilities for music creators and the music industry in general. We are focusing in network open innovation, customer-driven development, service design, and very systematic technology research. And our aim is to partner with the best people in the world. We are not making the world perfect by ourselves, that's for sure. So what Teosto Future Labs does? We are designing future concepts, participating in different kind of innovation networks and ecosystems, providing open data to developers, building APIs for sharing music information to third parties. We are doing multidisciplinary research with leading universities in the world. We are working on innovation policy initiatives, doing early stage investments for startups, which is something that collection societies normally don't do. We are giving startups advisory, also working with the developer community in Finland a lot, organizing events, challenges, hackathons, you name it. Although I'm usually traveling quite a lot, meeting new people, networking and having a good time. For example, in Portugal, our work is still very systematic and it's based on open innovation, service design, a really systematic content framework about the topics that we search. We are not only focusing in incremental innovation, which is basically trying to improve our current processes, but we are looking for new things that will have some effect for Teosto in the next 5 to 10 years. That's something we can't do alone, even though we sometimes tend to think that we might be the most brightest people in the world. We are not, so we need new players and new partners. R&D-based industry, academia, policymakers, startups, to work together to make things happen. The work of Teosto Future Labs can be basically divided into 4 different areas. The basis of the whole thing, how we search new things to develop and new partnerships, is network building, knowledge share, advisory for young companies. Then there are Teosto Future Lab concepts that are focusing into areas that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with collective management, but what might mean us something in the next 5 to 10 years. We are also trying to improve the collective management system. It's done by a project called Polaris Project Lab, which is a Nordic collaboration with the Danish and Norwegian societies and Teosto. We are leading it. And then there are Teosto Future Lab spin-offs. That's basically one of the first real outcomes of the work that we've been doing. We have already established one startup company focusing on blockchain development, and during this year there's going to be another one. If we think about the operational environment of music industry in general and collective management, of course, already 15 years ago, the first wave of digitalization changed the whole way music is being consumed and distributed. And similar but much more bigger changes is happening right now in a number of industries. For example, retail and transport or banking or insurance business. And what's basically happening it's got to do with a number of new technologies, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, Internet of Things, and this kind of second wave of digitalization is not going to leave collective management untouched. So far, we've been in a really secure space, doing what we've been doing for decades, but it's not gonna be like that anymore. If we look at some general trends that are changing music industry in the future, there are several already quite major technologies that we are already using, like content recognition, building APIs, blockchain, IoT and sensors, but there's a lot of other things that's going to come in the next 5-10 years. I've just made some red markings in the slide about some things we are already dealing with, and it's not only the things that are available right now, but also smart contracts, unified IP platforms, which I'm going to talk about later, and also effective technologies. If we think about the major trends that will affect collective management, I have basically divided them into 5 different topics which are here. The first one is called real-time, second metadata explosion, decentralization, machine learning and AI, and interoperability. And I'm now going to walk you through these topics and try to mirror them on the work that we are doing right now, and also give you some examples of other things, projects, initiatives that are happening right now, and some things that will happen in the future. Real-time is a very, very good question if you think about collective management, because many of you probably know that the time that it takes from a music usage or music performance until the final payment can take a lot of time. I think it's normally around 6 months, but in the worst case scenario it can be even 2 years, and that's really not acceptable anymore. Why? Because all of us as consumers, we are used to real-time experience in basically all the solutions we use, banking, airline, different mobile apps, and also speed is a major differentiating factor in music business in the future. And also the new competitors entering this field are much more faster than the traditional players in collective management, and we have to make something about that. And of course, when we're talking about real time, there's a question, do music creators actually want the money right away? We've been interviewing a lot of our members, they don't really want it that way. But the important thing is kind of feel of real time and freedom of choice. The other important thing is to provide them real-time information about music usage, and they can then decide when they will get the money. How we started to solve this problem was the launch of Polaris Future Lab project. This work started last August. We did a kind of high-level concept last fall about what a future CMO will look like. The aim was to develop a state-of-the-art, modular and scalable platform for real-time managing and processing of music rights. And right now we are in the middle of enrolling different kind of pilots to test and validate new technologies that could be then implemented into our core processes by 2020. This work is done with Coda from Denmark and Tono from Norway. And of course, it was a very, very cool thing for Teosto Future Labs, because we basically sold this idea to our sister societies and they are paying for our work right now. Happy about that. But what we are I'm aiming at is an automated and modular rights management model, relying on APIs and common protocols to secure the interoperability for different kind of future platforms in the future. Flexible self-service payment possibilities, and of course highly automated processing, because right now we need still a lot of manual work for some areas to actually process music recording data and then pay it to musicians and musical authors. There are a lot of cool companies who already are doing things that can help us to achieve these goals. Collective societies, they are not technology companies, so it makes sense to us to use the best technology which is already available. Some examples of interesting companies is an Israeli-based tech company called Revelator. They are already doing online processing for labels and publishers, and they have really cool dashboards and real-time processing for online data. And companies who understand music business and are also technology-oriented are very good players in this field to work with. Another interesting company is a US-based Mazooka. Live music performances and royalty distribution is a good question because in all of the countries, the collection societies, they are gathering the information about the gigs that have been played from the artists that have played them, and they are not necessarily even members of the societies, and a huge amount of that information is missing in a lot of countries, except Finland. We have an app for that for in iOS and Android, where Finnish artists can report directly to us where they have been playing, the set list and stuff like that. But there's one problem. All of us probably know that if you download an app in your phone to do only one specific thing, it really doesn't work, and nobody remembers even to use it. So Mazooka has built a Facebook Messenger bot to do that. The bot reminds the artists that, hey, you have played a gig here at that date, and they already suggest a set list to them. So basically, the bands or the artists need to just accept that or edit it, and then press enter, and then the set list goes directly to their own collection society and Cambridge Analytica. But I think that's the way to do it in the future. One cool example of new kind of music licensing is also a US-based company called Anthrax. They have designed first of its kind, at least what I know, algorithm-based dynamic licensing platform. They are competing in US with the local collection societies, but outside US they are offering this as a service for other collection societies to do direct licensing globally, and that's one possible way to do it in the future. So, if we go back to the real time, I think pretty much the problems have already been solved. We need to just do it. Metadata is another buzzword. Everybody's talking about that. Mainly because the problems with connecting different kind of identifiers like ISWC or ISRC, work identifiers and recording identifiers, which are in many cases lacking from digital music services, and that causes problems like black boxes and stuff like that. Many players are trying to solve that, and then, for example, Swedish startup called Audley is trying to gather all this information during the creative process and then give it to publishers and CMOs, so it would be available as soon as possible. But even though we might solve the problem with the work identifiers, it's just the beginning. We have been really much focused on neuroscience and music and emotions. I'm really much thinking that emotion data will be another layer on top of music data in the future. Biosensor technology, machine vision is already very good technology. It's available, it's cheap. You can collect huge amounts of information about people who are experiencing content. We've had a project called Nemo, Natural Emotionality in Digital Interaction. It was a collaboration with neuroscientists from University of Helsinki and us. We won an innovation-based competition by University of Helsinki and got 250,000 euros to work on this for 2 years. What we did was that we started to test different kind of emotion-aware technologies, ranging from brainwave sensors to mood rings to VR equipment and stuff like that. Machine vision was already one thing we've been testing a lot, which is a really cool way of detecting information from people's faces. For example, when Leo won his first Oscar, it was pretty easy to detect from his face that he was actually really happy about it. Machine vision can look also really cool. What we did in the first place was that we partnered with a music festival in Finland called Sideways. It's an alternative music festival, and in the summer 2016 we built a kind of installation that used facial recognition technologies and cameras to detect people's emotions from the audience while they were watching live gigs. And we produced a 3D installation called Olento, which is creature in Finnish, that expressed the overall audience experience during the gigs. It was a very cool start. Of course, it was just an art installation, but giving some kind of idea what this could mean as a service in the future. We continued this work last summer in Barcelona, in Sonar. We were partnering the Sonar Innovation Challenge, and basically we challenged our team to build a solution that uses biometric information and biosensors to enhance live music information, live music experience. And the way we used it was bananas, because they're conductance. We don't want to attach sensors into people's bodies, so it was really easy that they were just lying on a chair, both hands in bananas, and in that way we could detect their heart rate and skin conductivity and then produce these kind of visualizations in real time when they were watching the live show. Technically, it was done like this. We used the live stream of the concert to detect some musical features like key and tempo and mood of the music, and then matched them up with the heart rate and galvanic skin response of two festival attendees, and they could show in real time how they were expressing the music. How this could be used in the future: it could be a service for live streaming of concerts where sharing of music experiences is enabled by visualizing or otherwise transmitting information about the emotions, reactions, excitement level of other viewers in real time. It could be also used as a component for VR music environments, and probably the easiest solution in the future would be a service for music festivals for visualizing a kind of vibe meter of what's happening in some stage, where people could just see, hey, there's something good happening. But that's just a kind of idea of how we could use it in music. But biometric sensors can be also used in other ways. I think music as medicine and music in healthcare is one really big topic in the future, and there are big business possibilities also for music licensing. When we are mashing up information about people's biodata and attach it into music, we can do quite interesting things. One good example is the Sync project, a company based in Boston who is working in this field. Their CEO is also Finnish, so that's why I know them very well. But I think for Teosto Future Labs, music as medicine is something that we are really much focusing in the future as well. Then there is autonomous cars. Cars will be the temples of entertainment in the future. When people are not anymore driving, they are going to watch movies, listen to music, and hang around in cars. And with autonomous cars, we are also able to detect all kinds of information, location, about transport, about music, and use it in different ways. Another kind of metadata is, of course, voice search. Right now, it's pretty simple to ask Alexa to play one song or one artist, and it's already pretty easy to do it that way. But in 5 years' time, I can't even imagine what voice search can do. And voice search needs also a different kind of metadata layer in order to understand intonation of people and very, very different kind of questions about the content they want computers or subwoofers to play. Even more challenging is generative music. So basically music made by computers. If right now it looks like nobody is doing albums anymore, it might be that in the future a song or a track is something that's also disappearing or fragmenting, because with all of this different kind of data we are able to collect, it might be that when people are listening to music, it might adapt based on people's mood or people's location, and after that it would mean that instead of one song there could be millions of different versions of one song, and all of them would need different kind of identifiers, and the whole music industry is fucked. Another thing which is challenging is also micro-licensing. Idea about micro-licensing is to split a work into very, very small pieces that enables licensing of loops or stems or little bits of one song or one composition. People have been doing mashups and remixes since 70s, but nobody's able to license that. We've seen really, really good stuff. Paul's Boutique by Beastie Boys or Beck's Odelay. They just made it, didn't ask for permission from anyone. But if there would be an easy solution to license all of this, it could make huge revenues to musical authors. Massive Attack has been playing with this area with their Phantom app. They launched it 2 years ago actually, and it enabled the app users to remix the songs of Massive Attack. I've been discussing with Andrew Melchior, who's the CTO of Massive Attack. Yes, they have a CTO, which is kind of funny. And he also has an idea that the next version of Phantom should be something that would enable users to license different parts of the Massive Attack songs. And it might be that we are also involved in that if it's going to happen in the future. You can also use music in very, very interesting ways. Have you ever heard about data sonification? That's a way to use music to understand data patterns better. My colleague Michela Magas, who is the founder of Music Tech Fest, they have been working in this field and actually partnered with European Space Agency, and they are working with music to understand better astronomy research. There are also some examples that music has been used to understand biometric data patterns to prevent cancer, which is also an interesting field. And if we think about these two examples, we are entering into a field where music information is actually mashed up with something really, really different. And then we go into kind of very, very general platforms of handling different kind of data about copyright, but about IP in general. Music Tech Fest launched Industry Commons last year. It's basically an open innovation methodology, technology, and a platform for handling different kind of IP, music, software, and also like industrial IP. And why it's interesting is that with mashing up all of these different kind of components, it can show up with very, very cool new data-driven innovations that were not possible before. This is something which is already stated in the high-level policy framework of the European Commission, and we've been also working with Music Tech Fest, testing the first versions of Industry Commons. If we think about other examples of kind of general IP property right platforms, well, one example is also a music startup, Jog, a blockchain company that started to work for handling metadata for music until they understood that, hey, it works for everything. And now they are working on a project called Chord to handle all kinds of intellectual property rights. About metadata, there's going to be a really, really interesting next 5 years. Okay, then about decentralization. There was one panel about blockchain yesterday. I'm not going to discuss about that too much, but basically just to give you some kind of idea that my view is that decentralization is going to change music rights management processes, whether we like it or not. It's just going to happen. If we think about blockchain, it needs a little bit of demystification because some people are scared about it, some people just don't understand it. It's just a word, it's just a technology that it enables executing different kind of things. Personally, I don't think that we will have some kind of big spreadsheet of all the music information in the world handled with blockchain technology because it needs all the industry players to get on board, and it will take ages or forever. But for some really, really specific use cases, blockchain might also already be a good way to go. So then I will just tell you as a fact what blockchain is able to do for music industry. There are 6 things. Music metadata management. There are already several companies working on this topic. Collective management performance enhancement by improving current collaboration practices. That's the thing we are focusing at Teosto Future Labs right now. Information exchange between different stakeholders in the music industry. A lot of startups working on this field as well. Identity management. One good example is Imogen Heap's Mycelia and Creative Passport. And then a couple of things that are still yet to come. Dynamic licensing and dynamic pricing with smart contracts and micropayment solutions. Dot Blockchain is probably the most well-known company focusing a lot on metadata management and making the metadata right. There are also a number of initiatives by other collection societies, ASCAP, SACEM, and PRS. SOCAN, they are exploring blockchain technologies, but I see all of that work as a kind of trying to understand how blockchain works. They are lacking real use cases. One good example is for me is Unison. Hordi was here explaining yesterday what Unison does, and it's a really good benchmark for the work we are doing for the Nordic R&D initiative, because basically what Unison is doing is exactly what we should do. But then let's go and see what we have been up to. We were the first collection society in the world that launched a working blockchain prototype for music copyright organizations. The platform is called Pigeon. And what Pigeon does, we are actually focusing in a really specific and small use case that can be already handled by blockchain. It's about foreign live music performances. So basically, if a Finnish band goes to Portugal for a gig, they might give some information to the local sister society spa here in Portugal, which will then they take their 15 to 20% cut out of it, and then they will keep the money for 6 months or 1 year, and then they will pay it to Teosto. We will take our 15% cut out of it, and in the end, 40% of the money is gone. And it might be that it takes 2 years' time to distribute the money to the actual right holder. That's unacceptable. Pigeon is about solving that problem. We should be able to do it not in 2 years, it should be done in 2 weeks or 2 days. We are right now in the middle of starting to build the alpha version of this product. The way we are doing it is even more interesting. Teosto is a non-profit, so it makes us no sense to start new businesses.
Sorry, what is blockchain?
Blockchain is a technology for decentralized, distributed way of handling data. So if you think about, maybe a good example is like a Google Doc where everyone can put information at the same time. But at the same time, blockchain makes it with cryptography very difficult to change any information that's been stored into blockchain. So it's a secure way and transparent way for parties that don't trust each other to store data, in a very simple way of telling that. What we did was that we established a spin-off company outside the collection society. It's called Mind Your Rights. It's already operational, and Mind Your Rights is the company that's going to start the actual business development for this product, and Teosto will be a future customer to Mind Your Rights. So basically, I think that's the only way to do it if you're a non-profit. So we are going to establish companies. We've been also doing work with smart contracts. Music Tech Fest Labs in Helsinki last November was the first ever pilot of real-time smart contracts. It was made as a musical performance, which lasted about 20 minutes. There were several people on stage. It was not about blockchain, it was about also about using different kind of sensors to play different kind of instruments. We had a blind singer on stage who used electronic music software with her mind, and at the same time all the information about the IP of the softwares and the music itself was stored on blockchain. So it's possible, but of course with smart contracts then there are scalability issues. Many of the traditional music industry players are complaining that blockchain is not working because it doesn't scale. We have so much information coming from online services, and it can't handle it. It might be so, but there are already different ways to handle that. Technologies and ways of working, for example, called sharding or parallel blockchains that can already handle huge amounts of data. The next thing that will change the way we work is machine learning and AI. Artificial intelligence is still not very intelligent. It can handle very specific areas, for example, what IBM Watson is doing on healthcare, but a kind of general AI is still very, very far away. How we are going to use it in the future will be more kind of simple ways, using machine learning to automate the processes music industry organizations are handling with pen and paper or Excel sheets right now. It's nothing special or music industry specific. It's something that everybody else is already doing, but music industry should do as well. We are working right now with IBM on this topic, building algorithms to improve automated matching of music reporting. Basically, when a TV channel reports us what music they have been playing, it lacks a lot of information, and there are still people who have to do manual work and make it right. So in the future, we don't need it anymore. There are also other companies. One example is Blockura, a UK-based blockchain company who's also doing machine learning for basically solve conflicts in different databases. For example, a collection society might have different information about the splits between the authors and publisher than the publisher, and they are mashing it up and with machine learning improving it into a correct state. Of course, music AI is already used for creating music, and one good example is JukeDeck, a company based in Cambridge, a spin-off of Cambridge University. Really smart guys working very hard to make us obsolete. They are already licensing music for background stuff, for productions, and also for shops. But already, actually 1 month ago, JukeDeck started to work with music creators, and I think we shouldn't be too afraid about music AI, because I think in the end it will be a tool for music creators to make music. It's not just something that will make musical authors out of job. Another still pretty far out example of AI is distributed autonomous organizations, DAOs. Basically, it's a mixture of blockchain technology and artificial intelligence that is used to, for example, establish a company into blockchain that works with artificial intelligence without people. I have already got one proposal from one tech company to create a DAO to replace the board of Teosto. You can imagine that I haven't been suggesting it yet, but we will see probably DAOs in music industry in the next couple of years. Interoperability, the number 4 of my topics. With this term, I mean linking digital assets and metadata between multiple platforms, basically enabling linkages across different data silos. Music industry is full of data silos that are not connected into each other, and we need APIs, application programming interfaces, to connect them. And why it's really important. I'm pretty sure that in the future, all the transactions, all the reports from the use of music works will be automatized, and the only possibility to ensure ways to make business with music rights is to ensure that the data about music rights, who's the author of the song, who's the publisher of the song, what's the identificator of a work, what's the identificator of an author, is available and linked from these closed silos into the real world. And opening user-friendly APIs is the best way to do it. There are things happening in this field as well. Open Music Initiative is a project led by Berkeley School of Music. We are members of OMI as well, and it's a huge collaboration and ecosystem of over 150 companies, big companies like Spotify and YouTube and Netflix, all the big publishers, all the big record labels, some collection societies, tech companies, startups, whatever. But what OMI is trying to achieve is to create a kind of common set of standards how we exchange data with APIs. And how to do it was that we created a kind of minimum viable interoperability standard. What is the data we need to have always around when we exchange data between music industry partners? They have already an API specification available, and how we are working on with our API project is also in line with OMI specifications. We have already an open API available. It's about live music data. We offer all the data about gigs in Finland through an open API. Basically, it's all the gigs, the venue information, geolocation data, gig dates, performers, set lists, and also author and publisher information and ISWC codes if they are available. We did this already in 2015, and in the next upcoming months we will update it with 2017 information as well. This is a kind of information that is very, very interesting to cities and municipalities and also live music industry, because we are the only one in Finland who can collect this kind of information, and it's the best and the biggest source of live music data in Finland. We are also building a new kind of API ecosystem as a part of the Polaris Project to make our data more available to partners. Right now we are starting one of the Polaris pilots, which is to build an API to offer information about the works that Teosto represents to third parties. It will be a kind of sandbox for our companies we work with, but also new tech players to play with our data, understand the data structures, to build new solutions with us. I'm not able to tell you who we are going to work with, because I think probably next week we will sign the contract, but you will hear about it later, hopefully. And then how we use also data is to offer it to developers. We've been organizing, giving data, judging, mentoring many hackathons in Finland and around Europe. And how we can do it is that we have data available through APIs. And it's very, very interesting because we are at the same time building a kind of community of developers that are interested in music in Finland. They are developing new solutions. This is just one example called Arctic Sounds that used our live music data to visualize where our gigs played in different cities in Finland, in what locations, and how many gigs per municipality, etc. It's about building communities, finding new talent, and also making data available to people who can produce some solutions or ideas with that we might even think about. Then, last but not least, one really important thing that we have been working on is music education, and especially technology-enabled music education. Finland has the best educational system in the world. We are really proud about that. But at the same time, music education in schools kind of sucks. And it's the same thing in many other countries. In Finland, it's still mainly about learning to play other people's songs with instruments. And we are trying to change it so that people would be creating their own songs in schools. And how would it be possible is with new technology, because it's about democratizing music creation. If we think about technology, you don't have to be an expert in playing a violin or piano or drums, because with different kind of apps and software, it's very easy to start just doing music. And that's what we've been working in schools in Finland already for a couple of years. And right now we have very, very good group of partners. Pompeu Fabra University in Barcelona, Sibelius Academy in Helsinki, the French Collection Society, SACEM, University of Cologne, and some very, very cool startups from UK and Finland as well to work on this. And we are trying to build a concept that could be spread into other countries and territories. It's called Future Songwriting. We have now a proposal for European Commission to start work on this. We are waiting for the final answer from them, which should be available next month. It's a 900,000 euro project with partners from France, UK, Germany, Spain, Hungary, and Finland. And with this project, our aim is to design an educational export concept to change the music education so that people would be creating music by themselves and using the latest state-of-the-art technology. It's a teacher training program and a creative project model for schools and kindergartens. And what we will finally offer is a new curriculum to different countries, teacher training, expertise in technology, learning materials, and a community and a way of supporting teachers in different countries and also matching them together. Of course, it's not only about the European project. The big markets are in Asia, and we are already discussing with some possible partners, for example, in Singapore and Vietnam, and we have a really good network right now with Musical Futures, a company who's part of the European project proposal, is also doing a lot of work in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Australia, and different countries in Asia, and in that way we might be able to launch this in Asia already before the European project. Then, just to conclude, we are not able to do any of this alone, and that's why I try to be everywhere. Finding new interesting partners, meeting new interesting people to make new ideas, start doing common projects. BMAT is one good example. They have a kind of small Linux computer that can be attached into the ceiling of a restaurant, and when the music is played there, it monitors, but it only works for recording music.
Yeah, it's not live, right?
Yeah, but not live. But live music detection is one thing that BMAT has been working on, and we were the first guinea pigs who tested live music monitoring in Finland. We did it already in 2012, but actually the state of that technology hasn't improved since then. We did a pilot in one very big rock festival in Finland called Province Rock. We tested the live music monitoring with 3 different bands. All of them were Finnish. One was an underground hip hop act, then a couple of really big names. And with 2 of them, we got really good results. But with the hip hop band, it was completely nonsense because they were playing live with real instruments, and of course rap music, there are no melodies, and it didn't work. And the why it's so difficult to detect or monitor live music, of course, with Shazam or the normal ways of detecting recorded music, it's easy to match a record against a database of millions of records because it's a complete match. When we are thinking about live music, it can be played with different instruments, in different tempo, sung by different people, and
so on and so on.
yeah, and so it's not possible if we try to match live music version into 30 million catalog of recordings, we will get tens of thousands of positive matches. So what we did is that we actually used the recorded discography of these artists. So we had only around 200 songs to match against the live recordings, and it actually worked quite well, except the hip hop thing. And what could make this even better would be to record live versions of the songs that bands are playing, and then match the live gig against recorded live music. That's something we've been actually discussing with BMAT lately as well.
And a different version of the song could also match a song played by somebody, a cover. You could also record.
Yes, it's possible if the melody structure is similar enough, but of course it's not easy. Yeah, it would be used as a kind of average of the total information collected. You could use it in that way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.